Hi everyone, this is Resting Witchface Tarot, and I am here with you for the long-awaited Year in the Wildwood deck study. Now, the reason why I wanted to do this series is because this is a very beloved deck that a lot of people seem to swear by. But when I have tried to use it in the past, it didn't always click for me. So I shelved this deck, and it's been a while since I've pulled it out. Now, I feel called to try to study it and use it and add what it has to say into my repertoire. Now, you may be asking why the Wildwood Tarot. I live in a really residential part of the Deep South. So for various reasons, it's hard for me personally to visit the wilderness. I grew up in a more rural part of the state where I live, where if I walked 20 minutes, I could get to a swampy yet relatively untouched part of the wilderness. So this is a way for me to reconnect with that feeling without having to drive 2 hours away. This deck has a lot of history. It was out of print for a while, and now it's reprinted as kind of a mass market type deck. And I just feel like it's time. So today is actually kind of a weird day in the Year of the Wildwood because it's Imbolc. So it's also known as Candlemas, Bridges Day, Imbolc. Today is basically one of the holidays in the Wheel of the Year. In some traditions, it's the day that the goddess gave birth to the sun. And from the time between now and Beltane, she feeds him and he grows stronger to rule the spring and summer. And it's a celebration of the returning light. It also represents the sacred fire, the tamed fire of the hearth, and on this day is usually the day that the evergreens that people used in their Yule celebrations can be burned outside as we symbolically move on to the warmer months. One of the other really great traditions is to give the house a top to bottom cleaning to signify getting all of that old baggage out. So with our study, we are going to start with the pole star. So the pole star looks a little different from the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, right? Just looking at this card, it has a more like grounded, earthy feel because it doesn't have all of this watery influence. So you see a lot of like heaven meets the earth type of symbology here. When I look at the pole star, I see the star kind of lighting a path for this figure, right? And I see the sky spinning around, this guiding star that's pointing the way for this figure to know that they're still on the path. They're on the right path. So for me, this kind of shares more of a connection between heaven and earth than the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. Now, the archetypes that we do have here are very similar in the fact that when you look at the star, you think of things like hope, inspiration, renewal, healing, and your inner light. And I do get that feeling from the pole star, but here I'm also getting the feeling of goals starting to be achieved. So when you're looking at this in the guidebook, it speaks to the star being an inner compass, and a compass that connects us from the heavens, which can also be considered where the soul comes from. It's that spiritual place, right? Inside of you. And notice how they both have a halo around each other. They both have like this glowing light that mimic each other. So you really get the sense of your inner light also guides you and is that compass. So what I did is I pulled out a journal and I gave myself a prompt for what is my inner light? What guides me? What are the internal forces that guide my heart and my gut? You know, where do we find the joy in life? How do we know that we are going on the right path? And how can we feel more of that starry optimism and light that we would be more open about in a world that accepted everything? So for me, this is very much about the celestial plan that comes from within. And it's that connection between the spark of the divine within us with that grand plan. Now, when we think of the star, what are some archetypes that we tend to think about, right? So, for the star, what I came up with is the universal law that from within and also without type of energy. The star of destiny, signs of a new era, stellar consciousness, and the inner sun. All of those things that make you unique and spiritual. And I really get that those ideas from here. So it's not so much about the emotion of the star in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. It's more about finding that inner light and that inner compass that lets you get to where you're supposed to be spiritually. So the second card of Imbolc is the Ancestor. So when you're looking at this card, what you're seeing is a teacher, right? The teacher is the idea of the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith Hierophant as well. But in the Wildwood Tarot, it's not so much about the structure of the traditional Hierophant. It's more about that traditional side. The Ancestor is the person that shows you all of the raw tools that you have to work with. The Ancestor is the one who says, look to nature as your inspiration. Look to nature and the past, the way that humans have interacted with the earth in the past, as a template for how you should treat it now and how you should respect it. So when I look at this Ancestor, what I'm seeing is almost a mimicry, right? So you have these two poles here And you have these two trees here that gives you kind of a sense of verticality. So much like the star card, you're looking up. But with the Ancestor, I feel anyway, that you're kind of drawn down and you're kind of grounded. In the guidebook, it says that she's a creature of myth, half animal, half human, but she carries a wand of wisdom. And a drum that summons all who can hear to gather and watch the sunrise. She's blessed by the land and by the divine knowledge that flows from the stars. So in this card, the Ancestor is more linked to the part of our soul that is ancient and related to the natural archetypes. It's the part of you that was called by the drum, right? The fact that you have this yearning to connect with nature and you're desiring to learn more about what nature has to offer you. What are the archetypes that the Hierophant and the Ancestor kind of share, right? So you have things like ancient memory in the Ancestor. You have a pathfinding type of guide. Elan of the Ways is a great archetype for the Ancestor, showing you the different paths. The spirit of nature within the human psyche, that wish that's buried deep down inside your brain to want to commune with animals and the earth and the sky and nature in general. In this deck, it's very much the call of the wild. So whereas the traditional Hierophant is very much about like structure and conformity and orthodoxy, they're both teachers. They both hold education. They both hold knowledge and a belief system. And more than that, they both represent kind of a social group, right? You know, connecting with other witches, connecting with other pagans, connecting with, you know, a brother and sisterhood of not just humans, but the animals that we share the earth with. So putting these two cards together for Imbolc, you really get a sense of that newness that's starting. Where are we going to find our guides? We find our guides both within ourselves and in the way that we connect with nature. And I think that that's a really great lesson to start with. You know, just meditating with these cards, which I will be doing later. What I like to do is I like to prop these cards up in my altar space, and I imagine myself leaping into the cards. If I were this figure, what would I see in this forest? How does this forest feel to me? What am I smelling? What am I seeing? Looking down and seeing my own body glow with this inner light that mimics that of the stars, and knowing that this is the fulcrum point for my spiritual journey. My inner light really is the pole star, right? So knowing that you are kind of at the center of your own spiritual journey is very empowering. And then maybe after, I've gotten this sense of being in the forest, in the Wildwood, looking at the star and seeing it mimic my own divinity, walking through and meeting this ancestor. If I were walking in the forest and I saw this person, this creature, this archetype, what are some of the things that they would want to say to me? What do they have to teach me? What are some truths that I need to know about working with nature? Maybe setting some intentions with the ancestor and journaling about that, and really writing down my goals. What do I want out of this study? How do I want to reconnect with nature? Why do I want to reconnect with nature? It's a call that's in a lot of us if we are walking this kind of pagan path. And doing a journey with these cards, I think, is going to be a great little Imbolc ritual. Hope that you have a good Imbolc. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to doing this study with you, and hopefully you'll come back. Okay, well, thanks for coming. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.